The quality of your bun can make or break what goes inside it. So today, we're making some perfect brioche style buns the easy way, which means you can make stuff like this, or that. So I think it's time we learned how to make Welcome. So I'm making slider buns today for an upcoming video, but I'll also explain how to turn the same exact recipe into full-sized buns for sandwiches or burgers. Let's start off by combining 100 milliliters of room temperature milk and a heaping tablespoon of instant dry yeast. I've got the full recipe with all the exact amounts in the description down below. We just want to let this bloom for 5 to 10 minutes to let the yeast start to do its thing. And we don't need this to fully dissolve or anything, we just want to make sure everything is nice and hydrated. Then, in the meantime, we can move on to our eggs. I'm going to use 2 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. The extra yolks are going to help us get a softer and more tender crumb overall. The main difference between brioche and other bread is that brioche is enriched with eggs and butter and milk, which give it a more delicate and almost cake-like kind of crumb, versus the chewier and more open crumb of a non-enriched bread. So the next phase here is to take 5 tablespoons of more or less room temperature butter, and we want to get it into small cubes. We're going to add these in phases as the dough mixes. You'll probably find it less messy and easier to actually cube it while it's still cold and then let it come to room temperature, but I'm cooking harder, not smarter today. You could also keep the stick intact and just shave it off as you need it, but I find pre-cubing to be kind of satisfying. Next, I'm going to prep our stand mixer, and I'm using a dough hook today. We're going to start off by getting 300 grams of regular bread flour into our mixer. Our goal here is to bring everything together, minus the butter for now, into a shaggy ball. This should take about 2 to 3 minutes or so on a low setting, and feel free to stop and scrape the sides as necessary. Then we'll also get 6 grams of medium to fine sea salt or kosher salt, and 6 grams of granulated sugar. This amount of sugar gives them just the faintest hint of sweetness, kinda like in the background. Alright, so phase 1 is done when you got a shaggy, ugly mess like this. Then we're gonna cover it and let it hang out for 10 minutes or so to let everything fully hydrate. Then, when the time is up, we're gonna get the mixer going again for about 2 to 3 minutes or so to let everything come together a bit more. Then we'll add in the few first cubes of butter. We want to add these in about 3 to 4 different phases if we can, letting them incorporate each time before adding more. This is where things get a bit messy and the dough looks like it's falling apart, and you might be second guessing that you did it right at all, but trust me, just let it keep going, and after 6 to 7 minutes or so, it should start coming back together. You'll know it's ready to come out when it's relatively smooth and pulls away nicely from the sides of the bowl. It should also have a nice bit of shine to it. Next, I'm going to get it into a rough ball to help build a little bit of tension on the dough. And we're going to get this into a large bowl lined with some olive oil for about an hour or so at room temperature. We're really looking for it to fully double in size. You can cover it with some plastic wrap or a damp towel so the surface doesn't dry out too much. It's a bit warm in here today, so this doubled in just about under an hour. It's nice and airy and has a really sweet and pastry-like smell to it. We're going to get this onto our board and shape it a little more to get a super smooth texture across the top. We're just looking for something that slightly resembles a nice big pizza dough ball. Then we'll start to press it out nice and evenly so we can start to divide it into portions. This is the step where you can decide the size you want your buns to be. For slider buns like I'm doing today, we can divide them into 12 individual dough balls, but if you want larger, more traditional size buns, I'd double it into 6 dough balls. Since we're going for 12, I'm going to cut them into 3 long strips lengthwise and then 4 cuts the other way. You could also keep it round and divide them into triangles like a pizza, totally up to you. Then, for shaping, I like to pull the edges out a bit and then tuck them gently into the center before flipping them over and rolling them out gently on the board. Now, these are a bit delicate, and we want to be a little bit more gentle here than if we were working with pizza dough. We also want a decent seal on the bottom, but we don't need to do the hard pinch that we'd otherwise use on a pizza dough ball. Even though I kinda wound up doing that a bit here anyway. As I say from time to time, do as I say, not as I do. We're gonna get them onto a baking sheet that's been lined with some parchment paper, and this is the point where we can make the decision of whether we want them all to join together like a King's Hawaiian roll type of thing, or if we want true individual buns. I'm going for this in-between kind of thing where I want them to join just a little bit but not create one solid mass necessarily. If you want individual balls, just make sure to leave about a full dough ball's worth of space between each of them. Then we'll let these hang out for a final proof for about 45 minutes to an hour. In the meantime, I'm just prepping some egg wash with 1 egg and a tiny splash of milk to loosen it up a bit. So it's been about an hour, our dough balls are loosely connected, and they've puffed up really nicely. Now we're gonna go on with our egg wash. This is gonna help get them nice and brown and give us that classic shiny texture. Keep in mind that any areas that you don't brush won't get browned, so I like to go nice and evenly on all the exposed surfaces as I can. I always like to make more than I need because these freeze up really nicely, and they're so nice and light that they thaw out in like 10 minutes on the counter. Now, this part is optional, but I'm gonna get some sesame seeds on these, and when I go for seeded buns, I like to go really heavy on the seeds. Sometimes I'll also add in some black sesame seeds for contrast, but we're just gonna keep things simple today. The egg wash really helps these to stick, so it's also important to have an even layer so we can really get nice coverage with the seeds. And once you feel good about your sesame seed application, we're gonna get this into an oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes, but I typically just go off of color of the tops. We're looking for a nice golden color without any charring or overly brown parts. Then we want to let them cool for about 20 minutes or so before cutting into them. These are so good you could eat them by themselves with some butter. They're super tender and tear apart really nicely, but still have a bit of structure to hold up against sandwich ingredients or a burger, which, while we're here, might as well make one. So I'm just gonna start off by cutting this in half, taking a nice little gander at the cross section, and then we're just gonna toast it up over a medium heat with some butter in the pan. I like to keep them moving around a bit in the pan and get some nice even butter coverage. And before we assemble our burger, I want to let you guys know that if you've been enjoying the background music, I write it all myself, and it's available on streaming platforms under the artist name Jandre FM. And you can download the files for free on my Patreon. No sign up required. I don't have any sponsors for this channel yet, but over on Patreon, I'll be posting additional content, recipes, behind the scenes, and more. So please consider supporting my channel with a paid membership. I'll leave a link down below. All right, we got our nice char on the bun. Let's build a quick little simple low effort slider. I'm taking us back to the good old days with just some ketchup and a little yellow mustard. Then we'll follow that up with a couple dill pickle slices, cause why not? Then I've got a burger patty from a little test session from some insanely good home ground burgers, which will be coming down the road. All right, let's see how it is. It's so worth it. The buns have the perfect texture, slightly sweet, but they toast just perfectly for a little crunch to contrast the pillowy insides. All right, we did it. Give a like, subscribe. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.